We'll get it rolling. All right. So number one, welcome guys. Good to see everyone. So like I said before, we'll have people joining, which is totally fine. You can join, you can drop out if you decide you want to drop out. Again, just so you know, when you get onto the call, onto this call, you are muted by default. You should be able to see it down in your corner of your screen or on part of your screen where you can unmute it. So if you have a question or anything, feel free to ask anything you want to ask. And you will see here, I'm going to start a chat over on the side. That was actually meant to be a hi, not an I. So if you want to say anything, if you don't want to talk but you want to ask a question or you want to say something, you can type a message into the chat window over there to the right, or over there wherever it is on your screen. On mine, it's over to the right. So you can ask any questions you want. You'll see Laura just typed ask a question there if you'd like. So Laura's going to field some questions. I'm going to field some questions, and we'll kind of just answer things as it goes along. Please do not be shy. If you want to ask something, again, please feel free to type it. There is a meeting ID for someone who was asking. It should have been, give me a second. Give me one moment. I will type it. Sorry. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm just typing this. -8641. But yes, there is, and there is the meeting ID. There you go. So hopefully you got that. The meeting ID is that 511-755-8641. That should get you into the meeting if you're not already here, but so that's the ID. So again, if you guys have questions, feel free to ask. If you're not interrupting, this is meant to be an open discussion. We'll say a couple things, we'll talk about a couple basic things, and then have at it. Again, if you feel like you don't want to type, if you don't want to talk, I'm saying, or if that's not comfortable for you to just start chatting, you can type something in the chat window, and we'll go from there. All right. So first of all, I hope everyone is well. I hope that people are, given the circumstances, feeling good. People are hopefully at least enjoying time with family and friends. And even if you are not used to working from home, maybe you're working from home is a good thing for some people. It depends. So first of all, I want to get into one of the obvious things, which was the decision to suspend the training group. That was a decision that, one, was not made lightly. It was also not made in a vacuum. We talked about it with multiple people, and while I think we were maybe several days ahead of even some other people doing similar things, I think it was probably the right thing to do. Obviously, now under the circumstances, we wouldn't have an option, but we felt that, if you recall, when the last time we met on a Tuesday, we were wiping everything down with sanitizing wipes and cleaning things, and we had Kleenex out, and we wiped off all the water jugs and all these other things. And I think what we kind of felt after we did all that was that it was probably not something that was sustainable in a way that we would feel confident representing to you that we had done 100%. I don't like doing things part way. I don't feel comfortable doing things that are not well thought out and are not, for the betterment of everyone. And I did not feel confident after speaking with Leslie and with Mike and Laura and other coaches and even other participants that we could continue to maintain the level of say cleanliness and sanitization that would represent what was going to be ultimately required. And so that relates to multiple things, not the least of which is tables and water jugs and cups and all that kind of stuff. So I hope you understand that it was not something that we did on a whim. It was not something that we did without thought. So that being said, it was a decision that makes us very sad. I'm not happy about it. I'm not, as many of you who've known me for years know already, I get great joy out of doing this training group. It's fun for me. It's not just a job. It's actually really fun. And so It was very sad to me to have to make that decision, and as you probably noted with all the emails, I kind of continued to explain it because I felt badly about it. But as we go through that, I think that people understand it was right, and I think that we kind of had that jumping off point, and I think we've sort of now with the rest of the world have gotten to the point where we kind of accept it and it makes sense. I mean, um, so so kind of moving on from that, the next thing we had to start thinking about was how can we have the group be still engaging but not be in person. One of the hallmarks I think of the group that we've done, as we do things year in and year out, season in season out, and we'll even say week in week out, is the things we do actually in person. We try to send out informative emails. We try to send out enjoyable messages. We try to have the Facebook be something that people can enjoy and interact with each other. But I think our in-person experience has always been what our focus has been, and we have spent a lot of time trying to make that great. And so, it's great disappointment that we can't do the in-person piece. But what we've tried to come up with, and we'll continue to try to come up with, are things that will, I don't want to say replace, but can otherwise offer engaging opportunities for the group to continue doing various things, including training. So with that in mind, we can kind of then get to where we are today, which is, whether you live in Cincinnati or Northern Kentucky, or even Eastern Indiana. I certainly know pretty much all of us are in the same situation now. We're essentially being asked to remain at home unless it's absolutely essential travel. We have been asked to not even go to work, obviously, unless it's absolutely required, and unless there's something that is what's considered, essential, that we stay in our houses. That's part number one. Part number two, and the good news for many people, and I know people are taking advantage of it, is that running or walking or exercise or hiking or walking your dog or hanging out with your family outside, those are not excluded activities. And so everyone can continue to, if they so wish, to get outside and get some exercise and do things, to continue, if you will, their training. But we also know that in the process of that concept, that training looks a little different. And the lack of support that we cannot offer right now is frustrating to me. And I'm sure frustrating to all of you. If you go on a 13-mile run, you probably prefer to have a water stop out there for you rather than stopping at 3 drinking fountains along the way. But with that in mind, we want to take the training and kind of shift it, and the shift needs to be, at least in most situations, it's going to be to a scenario that is, we'll say, a scaled down version of training. And so understand that the decisions and many of the things that you're going to see over the coming weeks and days, and what you saw this past weekend with Sunday's email, was a shift to, we called it a purgatory between like the off season and training. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It's more of we'll call it a bit of an unknown area. And here's the reason for that. When we are, or where we were just before we suspended training, we're at week 11 and out of 17 weeks, which would be called probably full acceleration. We had our foot on the accelerator. We were moving up in mileage. We were moving in a direction of continued speed training and more intensity as far as that speed training goes. And as many of you understand, that would have continued to build for a couple more weeks, several more weeks, until a taper prior to, at least on the schedule and the way we built things, prior to May 3rd and the Flying Pig. And I also understand people are training for other races, but again, that schedule was pointed at May 3rd. So when the Pig suspended, postponed, canceled, however you want to look at it, and different people are going to make different decisions, the the situation there is we then had and felt a need to shift the focus. And I made an assumption which may not be an accurate one. So I also want people to please speak up if you can either speak up, type a message if that's easier. You can also message me separately or independently of this conversation. But we made an assumption that the majority of the group of people, especially those who were training for the Flying Pig, and even some people who are training for other races and now see the Flying Pig as an opportunity because it's in the fall, will shift their focus and shift their training to the fall. And when I say that, I want you to understand that doesn't mean you're going to stop running or walking. That doesn't mean you're just checking out. It means that your focus and your goal is now further out in the distance. It goes from May to, let's say in this example, October 11th. And so I hope you understand that that is the thinking behind sort of a modified version of training. It's also the thinking behind modified calendars. And it's also the thinking behind scaling things down. And so I want you to know where it came from. And again, if for any reason, if you have if you're planning another thing, if you have a race coming up in June or July, or it's not the Flying Pig on October 11th, or whatever it might be, we always understand that people are not always doing the race that we sort of plan for. But that is done for a reason, and we have to pick something. We have to pick a focus. So for the moment, knowing that that focus is now shifted, at least for the majority of people, I think, and again, this is this assumption that I'm not 100% sure I'm right on, but I'm assuming most people who were planning on doing the Pig or potentially even other races in early spring, May, even like late May, early June, would now be focusing on October 11th and the Flying Pig. So understand that's the thinking behind how we're going to kind of move forward, now, at least for the next, several weeks and we'll even say months. If for any reason that doesn't work for you, or that's not what you were thinking, and you're like, hey, where'd my calendar go? I want to do a 26-mile, even virtual run on May 3rd. Absolutely 100%. Please let me know. I'm happy to make accommodations and even, kind of walk you or talk you through things if that makes sense. Okay.
So I also want to just say a couple things about what that training schedule would look like and the decision beyond or for going to a modified schedule versus something that looks completely like the off-season training. So you guys have already built up a bunch of miles, and if you've run with us during the off-season, in the last one or two kind of off seasons, we've tried to build in some workouts during our kind of open weekly runs. And that's why you're still going to continue to get workouts, and it's not going to something where it's just like run 6 miles or 4 miles or 3 miles every day. Your body is still, in a position to gain endurance, to gain some speed. And so we want to take advantage of that and allow you guys to continue to reap the benefits of everything that you've done so far. So the weekly training schedule will look from kind of a pattern very similar to what you're used to seeing. You'll have a workout on Tuesday. It will be a gentler version, and by that I mean, you will have aggressive speeds, but perhaps less repeats, less distance. And the same thing with the long run on Saturday. It'll be less distance and less aggressive speeds, but it will allow all of you to maintain a level of conditioning where it'll act as a springboard. So once we get back into training to that target race, because regardless of if you're picking, Carmel, which is supposedly going to be in June, we'll see, or the Pig, it's going to be an earlier training start than we usually do in the fall anyway. And so this will allow us to all be ready and to take advantage of all of that.
You're on mute, Rick. Classic Rick. I love it.
So there we go.
He's still on the
Sorry,
mute.
guys. Sorry. Wasn't letting me unmute. Sorry about that. I was unmuting because Laura's sitting directly across from me, so we have a little echo. Can you guys hear her okay, by the way? Did everyone hear Laura okay?
Yeah, we can hear Laura fine.
Okay, perfect. So here, so kind of going from what Laura said, we will continue to provide workouts during the week. We will see, some kind of shift up and down, so almost like rolling, if you will, for long runs, and the weekly sort of mileage, like on, let's say, Mondays and Thursdays or Wednesdays, you'll see that kind of shift around a little bit and play a little bit as well. Understand that our thinking will now be to kind of play this through April and May and get it to basically June, and probably at least, just so this is kind of like full disclosure here, probably start fall training in June, assuming we are able to. We will start fall training in June rather than July. So just so you all know, that's the thinking behind this. And the reason for that is because we would have otherwise a very accelerated schedule, because we will likely, and again, kind of full disclosure here, target the Flying Pig as our primary target race, which is October 11th. And again, there's other races. There's Boston, there's Chicago. I mean, there's going to be a million races in the fall. Chicago, Boston, New York. Everything basically got rescheduled and pushed to the fall. So, it's going to be a very busy fall, again, assuming things proceed as we hope they will. We will continue to monitor that and focus on any developments that we hear. If anything were to change or otherwise, shift for fall racing, we'll keep people apprised of that as well. So, one quick note, somebody asked a question, which was something I was going to bring up anyhow, and that is, not necessarily my view or anyone else's, personal view on running with other people that are not family or spouse or whatever, in the 6 foot distance thing, the social distancing concept. The reality is that there has been mandates that have come down from government, from health officials, and that's not a mandate from me. That's not a mandate from this group. It is from far beyond where we would step in, and that is that you, in all honesty, you should not be running with others. Really, I mean, I will. My first comment would be is you should absolutely, positively be no more than no less than 6 feet apart from someone else that you're either running with or you encounter in a store. If you're going grocery shopping, for example, the ask is that you stay 6 feet away from people. That also holds true out on the road or on a sidewalk if you are running. And to take that a step further, that does include friends that would otherwise be, your buddies that you go for a run with, or take a walk with. I understand that is a sense of normalcy for many people, and that we, thankfully, the group of people that are here, there is a normalcy that's felt by going out with others and either be exercising or using running and or walking as a social vehicle as well. But this is not the time to be doing that. That's what I'm going to say. I know that people are excited to be out there doing that because it's maybe like the one piece of their life that they can kind of continue to do as they, quote, know it. But it isn't as we know it. It has changed, and we've been asked to make a change. I would say that if you can go outside and go for a run, I mean, it's going to be, warming temperatures and improving weather, and we're coming up on, legitimate like spring weather now. People are going to want to get out, and I get that, and you should. But I would suggest to you that you do so on your own when at all possible, or with a family member or spouse is fine. But what I'm seeing with pictures posted to the group and other things is that people are doing it with 5 or 10 of their friends, and then everybody stops and takes a picture. I'm not, this isn't me reprimanding anyone, please understand, but we're not supposed to be doing it. You know, I ask that we be the bigger people here, and we set an example if we can for other runners and other groups in the city, and we sort of take the high road. My hope and expectation is that this is not going, you know, we know this isn't going to last forever. And I think it'll make that opportunity when it comes back to normalcy that much better for all of us and that much greater. So, you know, please be attentive to what the states and cities and even communities are asking, and please try to follow that if at all possible. All right. Let's shift a little bit now to you know, there's other races, and I know that there are you know, some people who have very specific questions. If you have you can ask it. You can, again, either type it here, or I will shut up for a moment and you guys can ask questions that you have. Or if you have ideas for things we can do, or recommendations for people, you know, in this sort of changed world, you're welcome to share those here as well. So have at it.
Actually, before we open it up to, you forgot something.
I just got hushed by my wife.
I didn't. So before you open it up to all of the questions, which we will in a second, I just wanted to make sure that we threw out some of the different types of support, kind of virtual and very different to us, definitely, but that we have been planning behind the scenes, because Leslie and Mike and Rick and I have been working on ideas every day. Leslie and Caroline are going to continue to provide the videos with core and strength, and I'm sure they would be happy to take requests. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, Leslie and Caroline, but I saw Corky's suggestion of a you know, Zoom live core session. I think that would be outstanding to see 50 videos of all of you trying to do core. I would sit back with a glass of wine and watch that for sure. I think that there's also going to be some other, you know, kind of opportunities for Zoom meetings similar to this, like Q&A, like, how's it going? Oh, this is a problem I'm encountering, or an issue, where we can kind of field those together as a team, because I think that that's part of what everybody loves about this environment. It's a team-based environment, and we feed off of each other. So we're going to continue to provide those. Leslie and I plan to continue the book club, and we are going to do it virtually. So it'll be something like this. We can have a round table, and it'll be bring your own snacks and beer, but it'll still be great. And we are currently working on a book that is available on Kindle, so that you can get the book, because that won't otherwise be available. And we are also going to finally launch some of our nutrition support that we wanted to. So we're going to actually do some videos with nutrition advice, and even perhaps cooking some different types of meals that would help support your training, not only while you're training and gearing up for races and marathons and stuff like that, but also in this environment where if you go to the grocery store like we did today, well, Rick did today, and he sent me, I said, get rice, and he sent me a picture of an aisle without rice. Like, what do you do? So like, in a limited food environment, how can you still support your training? Those are some of our ideas, but we are definitely open to anything that you guys have or want to throw our way, and we will try to incorporate that. Right. There you go, Rick.
All right, guys. So, you know, again, we can open this up. I'm not going to do it. Like, everybody talk at once. If somebody starts talking, let them finish. But if you guys have some questions, you know, feel free to ask. I'm sure there's things we haven't covered. We will continue to send out, you know, a Thursday email and a Sunday email that should hopefully capture, you know, much of what we just mentioned, as well as, you know, some new things as well. But if you guys have ideas, you know, listen, guys, we're doing this at the same pace and at the same sort of, we'll say, newness that all of you are. So, I'm sure there's things we aren't going to get right, but there are some things that I think we can do to make it at least enjoyable as we kind of all go through it together. So, anyone has any questions, please have at it.
Okay. I have a question. So, usually I take the summer off because, June and July and August in Cincinnati are ungodly hot.
What are you talking about? It's not hot. What are you talking about?
It's a dry heat.
Yeah, it's a dry heat, right?
No, the opposite of
The
that.
opposite. Yeah, very much the opposite.
So if we're training like through the summer and we're trying to get a little like ready, what should we be thinking about now? Like, should we stock up on things while it's winter time so that we can get things on sale for summer training?
Are you talking about clothing, or are you talking, what do you like?
Everything.
Okay, because you take the summers off. So my first response would be is we tend not to I don't mean this as a knock to you, of course. We don't take the summers off, and so I think one, you want to make sure you have clothing. And what I mean by clothing, not that you're going to run naked, but clothing that will be appropriate for summer, whether it be short sleeves, tanks, shorts, obviously. And if for those of you who don't typically run in the summer in Cincinnati, there's reasons, and I agree with most of them. It's kind of brutal. However, yes, Michael, you can absolutely run naked. But with the group itself, so in other words, as we would take training and begin training, the training program, the actual official training program, we accommodate much of what happens in the heat as well. We ice the water, so the water is always cold. We will provide ice on extremely hot days. We'll provide just ice for people as well on the course. We still provide the same kind of things. We still provide nutrition and water and other. We tend to provide noon, and we would do more of that in the summer when it's hydration is more appropriate. I don't know that there's anything that you would need or want to specifically go out and sort of grab now in preparation for it, unless you don't have appropriate gear, attire, if that makes sense. Because I think that, at least what I found, nobody really wants to see me in a sleeveless top. But even, for myself, every now and then I will do so just because of the heat, honestly, and it's very warm. That being said, one of the things I personally, like, you guys may hate me when I say this, I'm kind of excited for the Flying Pig to be in the fall. I know this sounds horrible, for multiple reasons, not the least of which is I haven't been doing a lot of running because of this little guy. So it's going to give me an opportunity to actually train, which is nice. But the other thing is I tend to do better in fall races because training in the summer is so much more difficult. And so I think that this could actually be a really nice opportunity for people, especially if they pick the pig in this case, because you train in significantly more difficult conditions. I know people say like, oh, it's winter, I'm cold, like I don't want to run in it. But I don't know, I would almost say this across the board. Somebody can type a comment if they think I'm a moron, which I'm sure some of you do. But other than not enjoying being cold, most of us tend to actually run just fine or even better in cold weather. In other words, it makes our bodies feel better. I'm looking at, thanks, Laura. I'm looking at Kelly, by the way, as I'm saying this people running in the heat. But Laura, to kind of to your point, the opportunity actually presents itself to have a better race because you would be racing in the fall, because the conditions are so much more difficult to train in, at least in my opinion, in the summer. So I would take it as an opportunity to maybe sort of embrace the concept and say, it's going to hurt a little bit more, but the outcome or the goal might be that much better on the end. So
yeah, and now I can run the 4-miler in addition to the 4-way.
That's correct. Exactly. Yeah, now there's all kinds of races that are left. We can talk about that too if people have questions about the pig.
There was a question in the chat box that I don't want to get buried. It was from John. He asked if we pick up, when we pick up training in June, if we're able to, is it going to just be a continuation of what we were doing now, or is it going to be the beginning of a new season? And so it will actually be the beginning of a new season. And that's because if you think about it, it's going to be the whole cycle leading up to the pig, supposedly, right? Probably. And that way it will allow people to kind of jump back in, and we'll guide you as soon as the ban is lifted. We'll kind of guide you through what that looks like. So, and even to add in a little bit to what Rick said for Laura, what your training should look like. I mean, if you're really backing it up and your race is going to be in the summer, is that correct? Is that what I heard you say? Or just that you take the summers off? Regardless, so if your race is going to be in the summer, then really your downtime should be now. You should kind of be shutting it down and going back to like base training. Really simple. But you can still, if it's going to be toward the fall, you can still kind of, play out what we're going to be suggesting here. What we're suggesting is focused in a way that it minimizes the risk of injury, but also the risk of overtraining. So it's not just like, oh, if I maintain this high mileage and this intense training, I am putting myself at a higher risk of injury. There is that, but there's also just burnout and overtraining, right? So that you feel flat when you're going out and doing your runs. And we don't want that. We don't want to start ramping you up in June and July for your October pig and just feeling flat, because there's nothing worse than that. Then you're going to really waste a whole year. And so we're trying to avoid that too and help you all navigate that.
Is there anything that those of us who were supposed to be racing in April and then now are racing in September, do we need to adjust anything differently based on what's being sent out weekly, or can we just kind of roll with it?
No, I think that you can just roll with it. September, actually, interestingly enough, that's when my target race is, supposedly. So it's really easy to just roll with it right now, because for a September race, you're going to really start gearing up probably end of May, you'll start. So right now, just I would say roll with it and don't worry too much about it.
And Annie, obviously I got your message when you were messaging me when I was on the treadmill. I actually was running for once. But no, it's totally fine. It was great. I'm sure
No, it wasn't. Don't break your wrist sending me messages running on the treadmill.
I'm strapping. I can't fall.
It's fine.
It's fine. But like to that end, like again, if somebody has a specific question or there's something that is like, I'm not quite sure how to manage this, just ask, and I will respond to you, Annie, as well, on some of the details you asked me about. But yeah, I mean, right now, for most people, unless you have something like I see out of the corner of my eye, I see Mike down here. Mike is scheduled to run Carmel on April 14th, and I know there's a lot of people in. I'm sorry, on June 14th. There's a lot of people in here who I know are intending to do Carmel or intending to do Carmel, and so Carmel's a little different because that's kind of so soon. It sounds like that's really not so soon, but it kind of is. And who knows as far as the calendar goes or as the schedule goes, will it actually happen in June? I don't know. I'm not going to be one to guess at this moment. But in the big picture, other than something that is happening still for you in May or June, you can probably follow what we're putting out as far as sort of a modified scaled down calendar. And it should work pretty well into what you're going to do, because we'll ramp it back up when it's appropriate. Damon had a question. I see you. So
yeah, Tricia and I are signed up for San Francisco Marathon at the end of July, and unless the state of California is completely shut down still at that time, I'm planning on running. I haven't booked a flight or anything like that yet, but I'm still signed up for the race. And I know that their governor's pretty, straight shooter, and if things are not good at that time, he's going to shut things down. And I had to think that the race is going to make good and defer, just as the pig did. What do you recommend as far as continuing training? I mean, obviously there's going to be distance there, and that's still 4 months out. So
I'm going to answer, and then I'm going to let my wife chime in. We sometimes have slightly differing opinions on this, and that's okay. And other people, please feel free to chime in as well. It's a really good question, because the thing is because nobody is, you know, it's, if I could globally say like everybody on this call, everyone's doing the pig. I know that's not true. It may be true for a lot of you, but it's not going to be everyone. And so, you know, here's the situation. We don't know at this time what will and won't happen. We just don't. There's no way to guess. There's no way to plan. As far as a personal decision, and I'm not trying to skirt your question, but it's a decision that you will have to make. In other words, if you are going to continue to train, target a July race, right? I mean, like, let's just say the answer is that you are, because you kind of said you were. So you're going to train now as if you're training to race in July. And that's totally fine. And I'm happy to help you, as you know, I said before, to navigate what that might look like to prepare for a July race. That being said, what I cannot do, and none of us can do, is tell you what you should do. Does that make sense? As far as your decision, whether you're going to like go to California or not go to California, whether you're going to run a virtual race or not run a virtual race, or if it gets canceled, you're going to defer, you know, whatever. All those things are decisions you'll have to make. You know, I could sit here and, you know, it's all going to be conjecture, but you know, I could sit here and make up what I think is going to happen, you know, June 27th, you know, the slightest idea. You know, I don't think anybody on this call would have thought we'd be doing this. You know, this is the very last thing I thought I'd be doing on one of our normal Tuesday nights in the middle of the season, right? So, you know, I think from a preparation standpoint, if you want to continue to prepare for a July race, I think that's great. Your training will look different than what's coming out right now. You know, of course, it would look different than normal training for the pig, obviously.
Right.
So I'm going to answer your question as if I was doing your race, what I would do, because it is very uncertain, right? But let's say that you as you said, if it's a go, your intention is to do it. So I would take 2 weeks now, and I would basically take them as off season and just really shut it down and rest, right? Because if you're talking about a July race, you're 4 months out. And usually if you're thinking about 16 or 17 weeks, right, it's going to be about 4 months, and you're going to start kind of really low base mileage, right? Well, you don't have that because you were ramping up. I don't know what you've been doing the last couple of weeks, but I'm going to assume that you were kind of still going, you know, as usual. So I would take 2 weeks and I would rest a lot and kind of regroup, and then I would kind of rewind and look back at what the training was, and I would start from there, and I would start recycling those older those workouts and kind of try to adjust it so that they match up with when that race was. Now, if you have to actually make a decision, I would say if things are not looking like, if you don't hear that the ban is lifted and you're about 3 weeks out from your race, then I think that you need to start thinking about making a decision, because that's going to be the window of your peaking for your training, and that's where you're going to risk injury and not going to be able to feed that forward to another race in the fall, right? So you have to say, like, am I going to go for it and risk it? And that's a personal decision. Or am I going to say, you know what, nothing's happening, it doesn't look like this is going to go, I'm going to try to, you know, get my money back for my tickets and stuff and defer it and target a different race. But I mean, again, that's what I would personally do.
Sure.
And I think, you know, the other thing is that understand, and Damon, your question kind of brings up what I said at the very beginning of this, which was, you know, we're making some assumptions that, you know, that things kind of like people's heads as well as their actual real schedules have shifted to fall for, you know, focus as far as, we'll say, racing. Understand that when I'm talking about this, kind of everything I'm speaking about is relative to racing. So most people's, notwithstanding their July race, most people's brains and schedules and even confirmations have shifted to fall. That doesn't mean nobody's doing anything now. It doesn't mean you're not going to run a 5K or 10K. It doesn't mean, you know, you might not even do another half. between now, let's say, and if the opportunity presented itself now in July or something, right, for most people.
Right.
So I totally get that. But our reasoning here is we're trying to say, let's take the broad view of this and look at all the participants who would be in this group and know that the majority of those people in this group will shift to the fall. And we want to make sure we are doing our part in planning and presenting something that will, again, reduce this risk of injury, burnout, and ultimately stress on the body. Racing and training and racing both come in cycles. It's like a build and then a race day and then you drop, and then it's a build again and you drop. But if you continue to build to here and plateau and build again and keep building, the risk of injury goes up substantially. And I will also say the risk of burnout, which burnout often causes injury. But like, I know, like for me, usually after the pig, like the spring version of the pig, after May, I usually take the rest of May completely off. I do almost nothing. And it's honestly because I want to prevent my brain from getting burned out, not my body, but my brain. And it's just my time to sort of decompress and then kind of build back. And then, in June, I usually feel pretty good and I'm ready to get back to it.
So I think that you made a really good point, and I want to kind of elaborate on that. Rick was talking about his brain, which
did I say? You said I made a good point.
Yes, I did. So, so right now, like, this is a really weird time for everybody, and I think that everybody should also not discount the mental stress and how that is going to affect your training and your body. Everybody's stressed out in some way or other, whether it's because you're working from home and you have a 3-month-old and a toddler who's running around naked on your WebEx calls, screaming Frozen at the top of their lungs, or you have a family member who is, affected, or a vulnerable population. Please don't. So, but it actually is really important to think about, right? So it's going to have, stress is going to have, mental stress is going to have just as much effect on your body as physical stress. So if you are feeling that your workouts or your runs are great and they're liberating, that's wonderful. But if also they're not feeling so great right now, that's totally normal. And that's probably a reflection of what's going on and how your body is reacting to it, either consciously or subconsciously.
And one thing I didn't mention at the beginning, and I'm not, and again, interrupt me as soon as I finish this, and just to be quick, and that is, and I mentioned it in the email the other day, this is very disappointing and almost depressing for a lot of people. I get it. This is not, just the big picture itself. It's not like we're being, quarantined to our homes for a good reason, right? Like it's sad and it's tough and it's not a fun, nor particularly even rosy outlook kind of situation here. And so it's very upsetting for myself and for many people. So I get that, and that's not good. That being said, then it has an impact on our lives. We're working from our homes and we're prevented from doing things like we're used to doing on a daily basis, and sort of like a bit of what we call like our daily freedom, that we can just kind of go and do whatever we want, whenever we want. And then of course running is a big part of that, and walking, for all of us, right? Or none of us would be here. And so, I get it. It's not fun. It's disappointing. It's frustrating. But we also, I think, have a bit of an opportunity here to sort of find the silver lining and to turn it into a positive. And so, I think that if you can, we're going to try to turn it that direction whenever possible. So know that what we will be continuing to put out for people will be what we hope to be fun, engaging, and sort of, shiny, happy things, right? So when possible. And there's one of them right there named Laura Lucan. So there you go. So just so you know, that's the goal, is to make it positive.
Yes, I'm sure that everyone would describe me as shiny.
Incorrect. I see Caroline laughing.
Cue the REM song.
As I said it, I was like shiny happy things. I almost said people, but I decided it was too cliche because of the REM song.
Yeah, where's Michael Stipe?
I know. Well, we need him. He's such a positive, happy guy. All right. So does anybody have any other questions? Chime in.
So can I ask an awkward question, Rick?
It depends. To answer your first question, I am wearing pants, but I'm actually wearing shorts.
Okay. Well, I do have my exercise ball that I sit on during the day. I don't have a chair. I have a ball. But anyway, so that's not the question. The question is, so, and I posed this internally, but I just have a quick question about like why he said that he was closing the shop indefinitely, which is kind of just sounded weird, versus like just until this is all over with, right?
It's literally that. I mean, just indefinitely meaning because we don't know the date at which it will reopen. Because
All right.
it's not that's not a loaded word.
Right.
It's nothing more than just the unknown. I mean, please take this the right way. It'd be the same as me saying we're suspending the training group indefinitely. And we are. I mean, I don't know the date at which we will resume what I'll call normal operations.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No. I was just like, when I first saw that, I like took all the air out of the room, and I'm like, what? You know?
No, all good.
Okay.
Just the uncertainty of the unknown.
Got it.
So, anybody?
I unmuted.
Hi, Kraus.
Hi.
Hey.
Good to see everybody. Curiosity, I understand why you wouldn't be open to sending out routes for Saturday runs or Tuesday runs. Would you be open to sending out some mileage runs that would be just some like things that we've done before, so people have some routes for like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, just some ideas. So one of the things I've heard from my 430 group is I'm just running the same route over and over again. Would you be open to sending out some like weekly, 4 or 5 different options for people, not to run the same run, but ideas?
So I actually had this idea also, and I know that Rick actually was looking into a way of sharing a lot of the routes that he has already made and we've already run. I think it's a really good idea. And unfortunately, with Map My Run, it's been a little bit of a challenge, and I'll let Rick talk more about it, but I know that he's been thinking about ways to create, and I think this is what you're saying, kind of a repository of like 4-mile runs, 8-mile runs, 10-mile runs, so that you have these, you can be like, oh, I'm supposed to run, 6 miles. I'm going to go to the repository and pick a random 6-mile route. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
100%. Yeah. Just looking for route ideas for people that are like, I'm sick of my, this is what I do for my house. This is like something that maybe we would have done as a group. You can drive there, you can do it yourself. So
let me, to Laura's point, like we've been talking about this, trying to figure out how I can, I have probably thousands of routes. I mean, I often make routes and then never use them as well. So it's like, I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of routes saved.
Wait, so one thing that would be very helpful to us, actually, because Rick and I have talked about this and we've thrown it around and we don't have an answer, but you're all here right now. So why don't we just ask that and you can answer in the chat box, since we will have a record of that. How would you like that information to come to you? So if perhaps we can't do it as a Map My Run where you can go and look at the maps and like kind of follow it live, would a screenshot of the Map My Run route work? Would you prefer the turn-by-turn directions? Like, what format could we deliver that in that would best support you guys?
And also to answer, as you were asking the question, Julie, and the answer is, I would love to be able to do that, and like share, like, you know, here's some sample versions. The potential problem with doing this even at all is as follows, and maybe somebody who's brighter than me, and I'm looking at the screen and I see about 25, 30 people that are, and that's just screen number one on mine. I see everybody's faces. Is if I create a route, like, let me just give an example here. If I create a route in downtown Cincinnati, you know, Laura Arnold, it's going to work really well for you because you live in downtown Cincinnati. But if, you know, Nahalia and Mike, and I see, you know, I see all these people that live downtown, but, you know, I live in Hyde Park. So if I'm in Hyde Park, but I create a route that's in downtown Cincinnati, what I'm essentially doing is saying to a bunch of people, hey, like, in other words, I can't make a route from everybody's front door, obviously. So I'm going to make, let's say, 5 different routes from 5 different parts of the city. But if you have to drive to get to a route, you're not supposed to be doing that. Does that make sense? So I'm potentially opening a can of worms because you know, travel is supposed to be essential. Going from place to place is supposed to be essential. You could run out of your front door and go to that route, but it's all relative. So let me think about that. But to Laura's point, it's like, it would be awesome if I can do it. I just need to think of a way to do that where it's going to actually be of value to people. Because here's what I'm not dying to do, and that is to encourage everyone in this group to hop in their car and go to 5 different routes in different places, because then I'm just kind of flying in the face of everything they're telling us not to do.
Yeah.
Does that make
Right,
sense?
maybe start along the pig route and
Sure.
just like pick like way stations. Like, all right, here's a downtown thing. Here is Mount
Right.
Lookout. Here's Hyde Park. And
Yeah,
you know,
not a
people
bad
can
idea.
pick and choose, since that's what we're training for.
Yeah, that's a great
But
idea.
but
That's
I
a
get
good.
you.
I mean, you know, I could probably do that. I could pick, you know, maybe every, you know, 5 miles along the pig route and create, you know, routes that kind of branch from there. And yeah, let me look at doing that. I mean, I have no problem doing it, guys. And I would love to do that. The key is that, you know, whatever we can do in this respect, please just be respectful of what we are being asked as far as running near people and with people and all this other stuff. So I will absolutely try to do that. And let me think of some ways to create that. Not a problem at all. Good idea, Julie.
Can I just jump in and say, I am 100%, I am personally isolated right now. And have been, it's a strange thing. I thought I'd enjoy it more. But we can get in our cars and go to a point. So I can go to Smale Park in my car and park my car and run solo, or, you know, 5 or 6 feet away from a friend. So to have those options might be really, really good. And I appreciate where that's a challenge. But, you know, I'll make my own routes, but at the same time, it might be just a nice thing. And if we're encouraging people to do them an hour or 2 away from one another, or 15 minutes away from another,
Sure.
it's just good to have that kind of support. So yeah, that's you know, we can all kind of drive to wherever we start. We may not be able to be there together, but we can all get there separately and do the same thing. We need to.
Okay. Good idea. Anybody else have any other questions? Speak now. I'm never going to give you the chance again. I'm kidding. Anybody?
Rick, I don't.
Go
I
ahead.
don't have a question, but I wanted to say something.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I know that, we're a little over a week into this and we have no idea how long it's going to last, and already seeing, some people commenting or, just saying or posting that they're losing motivation. And that's going to be a challenge for all of us in everything. So just know that, as a group, we're all here, and hopefully everyone or most people have made a friend or two in the group. So please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us or anyone you feel comfortable with talking to. If you're just like, for anything, even just like, I just need to see a friendly face, or, I need a kick in the butt, or whatever it is. Just remember that we're all here for everybody, and we'll get through it. And then we'll have a big running party when it's over.
And just so you guys can feel good about Leslie, like Leslie's not sad at all. Leslie talks to me and Mike and Laura probably 3 to 7 times a day.
The greatest time of my life.
It is. There's a lot of, and we've done most of it video. So she's actually had a really good time because she's gotten to probably see me more than she used to. And I think it's making her very happy.
No, I'm literally working and those three are talking to each other right next to me on video chat. I'm just like, that.
And it's all useful information.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mike. See, Mike knows. Leslie's always like, let's wrap it up. And I'm like, but we're talking about beer. Yeah, we talk way more than we used to. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, but Leslie makes a really good point, guys. One of the things that to me means the most, to me personally, about this group is that I honestly look at everyone here as friends, and I really do. And we often refer to it also as a family, and I really mean that. Like, it means the world to us to have you all with us, and it means the world to us to have you around. Just the fact that I see all these faces on this call is awesome. It just makes me happy that you all felt enough, engaged with us to be on here. And we do appreciate it and we value it. So, that doesn't apply just like obviously from like you to me or whatever. Talk to each other. The Facebook group is there. We will again continue to find ways to do things like this. My hope is that we'll do these calls like probably once a week, just to have people have an opportunity, even if it lasts 10 minutes, to have people have an opportunity to check in or say hi to each other or wave for a minute and, get on with their day, whatever makes it work for you. But I do know that, at least for many of us, that the social interaction of this group is one of the more meaningful parts of it. So we want to try to keep that, present whenever possible, because I think it's not only motivating, it's supportive, and it's a positive for most of us. So thank you. Anyone else have any other questions? Thanks, Corky. Anyone else have anything to say? Everyone good? All right.
No.
Oh, sorry.
No, just good to see y'all.
Oh yeah, sorry. Thanks, Laura. All right, guys. So we'll wrap this up. Get on with your night. Thank you so much for doing this. Thanks for being here. Again, if you have any questions, thoughts, ideas you want to share, you're always welcome to message me personally. You can send me a text. Please let me know who you are if you do that. You can send me a message on Facebook. You can email me. I try to respond as much as quickly as possible. Sometimes it's not always the perfect moment, but I will do so, I promise. But if you have something you'd like to talk about, please let me know. And again, we'll put out some additional information about upcoming things and opportunities to talk with each other. And I hope everyone has a great week, and I hope people continue to be positive and know that we're here for you, and let us know if we can do anything. All right?
Great seeing everybody. Thank you.
Great to see everybody. Thanks a lot.
Have a great night.
Bye.
Peace out.
Bye.
Take care, guys.